back to another math video. We're going to be diving into more 4th grade Go Math. We're going to be working on lesson 9.3 in our Go Math book, and it is going to be on page 367. So, get your book and get ready to follow along. Let's go ahead and switch over. So, we are working with equivalent fractions and decimals on page, did I say 363? I think I meant to say 367. It's on page 367 in the Go Math book, but equivalent fractions and decimals. So first of all, we're going to be working with fraction equivalence and then kind of showing how it works with decimal numbers. As you can see here, we have a problem to unlock, so let's go ahead and dive right into it and unlock this problem. It says, Daniel spent a day hiking through a wildlife preserve. During the first hour of the hike, he drank 6/10 of a liter of water. How many hundredths of a liter did he drink? So the first thing, actually, if you look over here, it says, underline what you need to find. How can you represent the hundredths? So let's just underline what we need to find. And that's going to be the question that it's asking. How many hundredths of a liter did he drink? So it says write 6/10 as an equivalent fraction with the denominator 100. And they give us a model and then they give us some math to do it out. So first things first, let's go ahead and just shade the model that we have here, the 6/10 model. We don't have this model to shade yet, so let's just shade 6/10. So if we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 bars here, right? So we're going to go ahead and shade 6 of them to represent 6/10. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in our picture, this does in fact represent 6/10. But we have to be able to represent something in hundredths here. But let's go ahead and look at the math. So we do know that 6/10 can equal something over 100. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of fraction multiplication. So we're going to do 6/10 times something to get it over 100. Well, I know that if I do 10 times 10, I can get 100 on the bottom. And in this case, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I multiplied my denominator by 10, so I'm going to multiply my numerator by 10. So 6 times 10 equals 60, which gives me 60 hundredths. And we touched on this a little bit in yesterday's lesson, where, again, if we were to cover this up, we can see the 6/10 is right there in the fraction itself. Okay, because those zeros are just placeholders. So we are able to cover up. We see 6/10, 60 hundredths. So we're going to go ahead and write 60 hundredths in this blue box right there. Now, we have to shade in 60 hundredths. Thankfully, it's not too different from what we did with 6/10. So what you're going to do is you're just simply going to shade in the same 6 bars. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you shade in those same 6 bars, you end up with 60 hundredths because each one of them has 10 unit cubes in it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 10 equals 60. So we actually found out that 6/10 is equal to 60 hundredths. Now, let's go ahead and scooch down to another way. Now it says write 6/10 as a decimal. So, and then it gives us a little hint. It says think 6/10 is the same as 6/10 and 0 hundredths. So if we were to write just 6/10, let's just write 6/10 right now. We have 0 in the ones place and 6 in the tenths place. That's 6/10, no problem, nothing crazy. However, if you wanted to write it as 60 hundredths, you just simply put a 0 in the hundredths place, and now you have 60 hundredths. Because you see the 60 right here, it's in the hundredths place. Yesterday, we did mention that when you put a number in the place, so let's say we put it in, put a number in the 6th or the 10th place, we have 6/10. If we were to put, let's say the 6 was over here, it would be 6 hundredths. If we put, let's say our number was 15 and we had a 1 here and a 5 here, it would be 1500ths. You would have 1/10 and 500ths, which would be 1500ths. So depending on where you put that final digit, that's how you read the number. So this one would be 60/100ths. So Daniel drank, and you could write this either way. Oh, well, actually, we're looking for how many hundredths. So you either drank 60/100ths or 60/100ths, depending on which way you want to write it. 60/100ths or 0.60. Okay, so just like that, you just did equivalent fractions and decimals. That's all there was to it. But let's go ahead and go a little bit further into this and see if we can't understand it even better. So at the top of the page, it says, Jasmine collected 30/100ths liters of water in a jar during a rainstorm. How many tenths of a liter did she collect? Equivalent decimals are decimals that name the same amount. You can write 30/100ths as a decimal that names tenths. So let's take a look at this. It says write 30/100ths as an equivalent decimal. Well, first things first, let's go ahead and write it in the place value chart. So we're just writing the number we already have, 30/100ths, right? However, as you can see, there are no hundredths, so we could really write this number like this. Because when we're referring to decimals, any zeros that are after our final actual number are just placeholders. So we can cover it up and just look at this number. We don't need to know that it's 30/100ths. We just know that it's 3/10ths because these numbers are the same and we have less to write. So 0.30 or 30/100ths is equivalent to 3/10ths. So we write 30/100ths as 0.3. Let's take a look at the other way on the bottom here. It says another way, write 30/100ths as a fraction with a denominator of 10. Well, if we were to write this as a fraction, we say it as 30/100ths. So we know it is 30/100ths. 30/100ths written as a fraction is 30/100. 30/100ths. Okay? So what we just said is this decimal is equal to this fraction. Step 2 says write 30/100ths as an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 10. So in our first problem, we had to multiply. This time, we are going to divide. So we know 30/100ths, we know 100 divided by 10 can equal 10, because earlier we did 10 times 10 equals 100, so we're dividing. So because we're dividing the denominator by 10, we're going to divide the numerator by 10. When we do that, 30 divided by 10 is 3, because 10 times 3 is equal to 30. Okay? So, because we figured that out, we have 3/10ths. So Jasmine collected either 3/10ths or 3/10ths liter of water. However you wish to write it, fraction, decimal, both are correct, but there's 3/10ths liters of water. Now I'm going to go ahead and do one more to kind of show you my thought process here without all the stuff. And we're going to do number 1 right here on the bottom as well. So it says, write 4/10ths as hundredths. So they give us 2 different options to do it. We're going to do both of them. Okay, we're going to start with the fraction. We have 4/10ths, and we know, again, because of the past 2 problems, 10 times 10 equals 100. So we're going to multiply our denominator by 10. So we have 10 times 10 equals 100. However, whatever we do to our denominator, we have to do to our numerator as well. So 4 times 10 equals 40. So our fraction is 40/100ths. Now we need to write, for the next part, we're writing 4/10ths as a decimal. Now, 4/10ths over here, we're looking for an equivalent fraction. we did that. But this is just saying 4/10 as a decimal. So we have nothing in the ones place. In the tenths place, we have a 4 because we have 4/10. And then we have nothing in the hundredths place. So there's two ways you could write this at the decimal, and both would be correct. You can either write it as 0 and 40 hundredths, because that's what we have right here, or 0 and 4/10, because again, that 0 is just a placeholder and we don't really need it. Either way, both ways work well for the answer, and both solve the problem. So yeah, that is it. Be sure to continue watching this video till the very end, because at the very end on Edpuzzle there will be a few questions to go along with it. I'm probably going to have 6 questions at the end. So watch to the end, wait for those questions, and then make sure you turn it in when you're done. With that being said, have a phenomenal day.